Chapter 6. Wild Boy woke to the call of a crow. The beady-eyed bird sat in the caravan doorway, considering him with a curious, tilted gaze. What was that hairy creature curled upon the floor? The crow flapped away as Wild Boy rose with a groan from the sacks. Everything hurt from the beating he'd taken last night. His arm, his back, his jaw. His body felt like one big bruise. He rubbed his coat sleeve and felt the slash where the man's knife had struck. It still didn't make sense to him. The man had gone crazy, screaming about some machine. And then, moments later, that hooded figure had said the same thing. But he had to forget about it. He had a bigger problem that morning in the shape of Augustus Finch. He prayed that the showman had been too drunk last night to remember their fight. He brushed back his hair on his face and peered nervously through the van door. Outside, the clouds had cleared and the morning sun streamed into the park. A dawn chorus of curses and threats rang out as showmen rushed around the path, setting up stalls, laying tables, readying themselves for the new day's trade. Fairground children scavenged in the mud for empty bottles so to sell, while further down the path the circus porters huddled around fires, cooking bacon and heating coffee. The smells mingled in the morning breeze with the lingering odours of the previous night, spilt beer, stale sweat and pipe smoke. Beside the van, Sir Oswald had laid breakfast on top of his clothes chest, bread with hot dripping, as well as a bowl of clean water for Wild Boy to wash. Wild Boy couldn't help smiling as he watched his friend make more improvements to their van, climbing the side with just his powerful arms, screwing a new pipe to those that already crossed the roof, and then scrambling nimbly down to connect to the other end to the wheel axle. He looked focused on the work, as if it was all part of some grand plan, rather than just his way of keeping busy. Sir Oswald finally saw him, and flashed the sort of grin you didn't often see in a fairground. A friendly one. "I am glad you returned last night," he said. Wild Boy wasn't remotely glad of the fact himself. He just had nowhere to go. He tore a chunk of bread from the loaf and nibbled the crust, scanning the fairground anxiously. "You seen Finch?" he asked. "Fear not," Sir Oswald replied. "Mr. Finch is visiting the licensor." Relief washed through Wild Boy. On the last day of every fair, each showman had to secure a licence to trade at the next site. The next fair, Bartholomew Fair in the centre of London, was the biggest of the season, so there would be a long queue at the licensor's tent. With luck, Finch wouldn't return until moments before today's first show. "Better do your chores," said Oswald. "Don't want to upset him further." He leaned closer and chuckled. "Took him all night to wash that toilet muck off his face." Wild Boy couldn't bring himself to laugh. Although he was safe for now, he knew that Finch wouldn't forget about last night. Sir Oswald was right, though. There was no point in making things worse. Besides, a few chores might take his mind off things. He did the same jobs every morning. First he cleaned the caravan floor of whatever mess the punters had made the day before. Mud, booze, sometimes blood. Then he set up the stage with the crate stored under the van, propped up Finch's bed and hung the banners. Finally, he fed and groomed the horses and collected firewood for the stove. But that day, he couldn't shake off a feeling of dread. As he brushed the horses, he glimpsed a dark shape move between the vans, and then again between the trees as he collected firewood from the corner of the park. With a shudder, he remembered the figure that had watched him last night. The mysterious hooded man. He spotted another stick jutting from a hedge and yanked the end. Just as it slid out, he froze. Footsteps squelched through the grass. Someone was creeping up behind him. Wild Boy didn't move. He didn't know if it was Finch or the hooded man, only that he had to fight. His grip tightened around the stick. He had to time this perfectly. He whirled around, waving the stick like a sword. "Get back or I'll smash your skull!" he cried. Clarissa Everett sprang away, just dodging the swipe. Her freckles burned bright red. "Touch me with that thing and I'll break your arms," she said. "Break my arms and I'll break yours too." He wished immediately that he'd said something else. It wasn't the best line he could have used before a fight. But Clarissa's fist unclenched. "I ain't come to fight," she said. "If I had, I'd have won by now anyhow." The wind brushed her hair from her face, and Wild Boy spotted a dark bruise staining her pale cheek. She must have seen him look, because she turned her head. "Got it practising," she explained. "I got a proper circus job, remember? Not winning a freak show." Wild Boy suspected she was lying. More likely the bruise was from her mother. Everyone knew that Clarissa and Mary Everett, the circus owner, didn't get on. But he reminded himself that it was none of his business and that he hated her anyway, so he shrugged like he didn't care. "What do you want then?" he said. Clarissa looked around the trees as if she too feared they were being watched. Then she bore a crumpled slip of paper from her pocket. "Look," she said. It was the letter from last night. Wild Boy couldn't believe it. Why had she kept hold of evidence of their crime? Unless... was she setting him up for the police? He stepped back and raised his voice. "I've got no idea what that is," he said. Clarissa looked baffled. "Are you crazy? It's the letter we pinched last night. Look at it, will you?" Wild Boy stepped further away. "I never saw you last night and I never pinched nothing in my whole life." Clarissa realised what he suspected. She came closer and thrust the letter furiously at his face. "I ain't no bloody snitch. This is important. It's about murder." Wild Boy was about to shout again, but... did she say murder? The page trembled in Clarissa's hands. "I'll read it to you," she said. "I'll read it myself," Wild Boy said, snatching it from her. It wasn't easy. The letter was flecked with mud from last night and the writing was badly smudged. But he finally made sense of what it said. "I know who you are, but so does another who is after the machine. For God's sake, run! Run before you are murdered." A gust of wind rustled the trees and the branches groaned. "It says murder," Clarissa whispered. "I saw what it says," Wild Boy said. "It was warning someone, but they never got it because we stole it first." "You stole it. It was both of us. What are we going to do about it?" "Eh? We ain't going to do nothing about it." "You could find out who it was written for." "Me?" "I asked about you. That friend of yours, the posh bloke with no legs. He said you'd see things that other people don't." Wild Boy swore under his breath. "He ain't my friend," he said. He was furious at Sir Oswald. Why had he spoken to Clarissa? And he shouldn't have been blabbing a bunch of lies, he said. "They ain't lies. I saw it last night. You knew that man was rich just from looking at him, and you knew that family wasn't. I've seen him before," I said. "You're a freak and a liar." She snatched the letter back and they stood for a moment in silence. Wild Boy tried to think of a good insult, but really he didn't want to fight. He wanted to look at that letter again. The truth was, he'd already seen one or two intriguing clues on it, and he was keen to know more. But whatever this was about, he had to stay out of it. "It's none of my business," he said. "I've got other stuff to worry about. You doing all with your mother." Clarissa's freckles flared again. "You shut your head about her," she snapped. "Ain't nothing wrong with my mother." She threw the letter at Wild Boy. "You keep it then, but if someone does get killed, then it's all your fault." She stormed away, then stopped and turned. "I know why you watch people, you know. It's because you wish you were normal like them. Well, you never will be because you're an ugly, bloody freak." Wild Boy hurled the stick at her, but missed. He sighed. Neither of them had dealt with that well, although what did he expect? They were enemies, after all. But as he picked up the letter from the ground, he couldn't resist another glance. "The machine," he read. What was all this about? Another gust of wind rustled the trees and crows swooped like witches around the high branches. And then something else moved behind one of the trunks. Something black and ragged and much bigger than a crow. Wild Boy whirled around, his heart thumping. "Who's that?" he yelled. He rushed to the tree, but no one was there. "Master Wild!" Sir Oswald called from beyond the glade, one hand pressed into the grass, the other waving urgent signals. "The show's starting, hurry!" That was a call Wildboy had never thought he'd be glad to hear. For the first time ever, he realised he was eager to get back inside the van. He stuffed the letter into his pocket and ran full pelt to the fair. Okay, I want you to think what the machine is, and then I want you to just drop me a couple of sentences explaining what you think it is.